Something happened so strange that it's making people question whether or not reality is scripted or if we live in the Matrix. People are saying what just happened proves without a shadow of a doubt that, well, there is something darker, something stranger happening beneath the scenes. Something that most people, that the mainstream media refuses to talk about and that most people don't even know exists. What am I talking about here? Talking about how in 2013, a video game named Call of Duty Ghosts basically predicted what happened in Venezuela a few days ago exactly.
Time to earn the mask. There's our target.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Mila. How crazy are you?
It predicted the whole thing down to the letter. This whole thing was scripted in a video game, and it's pretty eerie when you think about it. But on January 3rd, 2026, Delta Force operators touched down in Caracas, Venezuela around 2 a.m. And their mission? Well, it was to capture the president. And within 30 minutes, the Venezuelan dictator was blindfolded, wearing a gray Nike sweatsuit, and he was sitting aboard the USS Iwo Jima en route to face federal charges in New York City.
At least that's what they said.
They're probably lying.
They're lying about everything.
I don't trust anything.
And you guys know all about it, right? The operation was called Operation Absolute Resolve, and it was executed with surgical precision by the most elite special forces unit on the planet. But here's where it gets strange, because 13 years earlier, in November 2013, Activision released a video game called Call of Duty Ghosts. And in that game, U.S. Special Forces conduct a nighttime raid on Caracas, Venezuela, to capture the president of Venezuela. The game's story, it takes place in the year 2026. Seriously, the year 2026. Think about that. The same city, the same country, the same year, the same operation. In the game, it even features a mission called Federation Day, where elite American soldiers infiltrate Caracas under the cover of darkness, moving through the capital to target high-value leadership. The mainstream media, they're going to tell you that, oh, it's just a coincidence. They're going to say with enough media produced, there's going to be, statistically, some of these things will actually come to be. It's inevitable. That's what they're going to say. And, maybe they're right, but I don't think they are. Because there's a whole darker aspect of this that doesn't explain everything. Because how many coincidences make a pattern? There's documented cases just like this where events that actually happen in real life were foretold in movies, in TV shows, in books, in games, whatever it may be, decades in advance. And what the mainstream media can't explain is the timing of the whole thing. Because when you start to look at the dates, the numbers, and some of the tragedies that surround this event, the coincidences, in my opinion, they stop being a satisfying explanation, because this whole thing, it seems like it was a ritual, like it was some sort of black magic.
That's what this is, satanic black magic. Sick.
Break down exactly what Call of Duty Ghosts predicted, and we're going to compare it to what actually happened. So the game's storyline, it basically centers on a fictional superpower called the Federation of the Americas. And this federation rises to power after there's some sort of global energy crisis that cripples and destabilizes the Middle East, and all the Western economies fall because the oil companies can't produce oil, and there's some sort of crisis. So what happens is that oil-rich nations in South America that are led by Venezuela, they unite to monopolize their resources and form some sort of anti-American coalition. Sound familiar? Because Venezuela, under Maduro, he was aligning himself with China, with Iran, with what most mainstream people would say is enemies to America, even though they're not our enemies. The game predicted this whole geopolitical alignment before it basically fully materialized into the real world. But it gets even more strange, because that's not the end of it. And wouldn't you know it, but 13 years after the release of this game, mirroring the time that they told us it was going to happen in the game, by the way, right? So the game said it would happen in 26, and here we are, January 2026, and it happened. American Special Forces basically did exactly what the game said they would. Delta Force, that was supported by different CIA operatives, they launched, I think, what was it, like 150 aircraft from, like, I don't know, over 20 different sites around the area. They conducted these nighttime raids on Caracas. They captured Maduro at his compound at some fort. It was one of the largest military complexes in Venezuela, and they extracted him to face justice. Well, that's what they call it, face justice. That's a whole nother debate. We're not talking about whether or not this was justified. We're not talking about the legality of this or what your opinion is on the actual raid on the U.S. capturing Maduro and Donald Trump taking over the country so that the U.S. now runs it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this specific thing where the video game predicted what actually happened and how this takes place time and time again.
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil? Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil?
How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. We would have gotten all that oil. All that oil, that oil.
And also, I think there's one Edgar Allan Poe story, I think in 1838, that talks about shipwreck survivors that would resort to cannibalism, killing and eating a young man named Richard Parker. And then, in 1884, there was a story that's strikingly similar. There was a yacht that crashed, and these real-life shipwreck survivors killed a boy and ate his body. His name, Richard Parker. So again, Edgar Allan Poe, did he know that this whole thing was going to happen? He wrote about it? Or was he being influenced by something on the other side, something just out of sight, something that we can't perceive as people, something spiritual? I think the answer is yes. And these examples, they pile up across the decades, across media, and they're always hovering in like this uncomfortable space between coincidence and something else. Because when you see something happen over and over again, it stops being a coincidence and it starts becoming a pattern.
He thinks it's a pattern.
It's a pattern of sabotage and disrespect.
That's right. So I think that this whole thing goes a little bit deeper and a little bit darker than most people realize. So let's get back to Call of Duty Ghosts, because the prediction doesn't just end with the game itself. There's a whole nother layer to this story, and it involves the man, or one of the men, who created the franchise in general. His name was Vince. I think it was like Zampella, something like that. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, forgive me. But he was like a legend in the video game development department. He created Call of Duty, or he was one of the creators. And he co-founded Infinity Ward, which was like the one of the major video game development companies behind Call of Duty in 2003. Basically, his work defined like modern military shooter games, and by all accounts, he's a legend in the video game industry. He's had his hands in all sorts of different projects. He's been working on games for a very long time, and by the year 2025, he was one of the most influential figures in video games in general. He was responsible for games that touched hundreds of millions of people. And then on December 21st, 2025, something, let's just say, suspicious happened. He was driving his car, his Ferrari, in the mountains of Los Angeles when he lost control and crashed. Tragically, he lost his life, and the other person that was in the car with him lost his life as well. They both were unalived. Now pay attention to the numbers, because the occult workings, they always like encode their signatures, I think. It's usually not a mystery. You just have to kind of know what to look out for. So he died on December 21st, 2025, which is the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year. But also, it is one of the most, let's just say, high occult holidays in existence. Occultists have been doing rituals on the 21st of December for thousands of years. Now pay attention to the timeline, right? The creator of Call of Duty died on December 21st, 2025. The US operation to capture Maduro occurred on January 3rd, 2026. That's exactly 13 days between the death of the Call of Duty's creator and the fulfillment of the game's so-called prediction. 13 days. Is that suspicious to you? Some people might be saying, yeah, it's the number 13. It carries enormous weight in occult traditions. It's one of the most obvious tells. But here's the thing, guys. In occult practice, the number 13, it represents transformation, death, and rebirth. There are also 13 lunar cycles in a year, and that's why witches' covens traditionally consist of 13 members, 12 regular members, and 1 high priest. And I think the Knights Templar too, they were arrested on Friday, October 13th, the year 1307. And that's where the whole superstition behind Friday the 13th came from. And tarot cards have 13 cards, and the 13th card of the tarot card is death, and it represents endings and transitions and basically destroying the old to make way for the new, like a fire, a regenerative fire. So think about that, because what happened to the creator of Call of Duty, right? There was a fire, and he tragically lost his life 13 days before it happened. And that's not the only place we see 13 here, because 13 years before this actual event took place a few days ago, what happened? Well, that's when the game came out. So there's 13 years between when the game was released and when the actual operation happened, and then 13 days between when the creator of Call of Duty tragically lost his life and the operation happened, all right? But wait, there's more. So we just talked about how there was 13 years between the release of the game and the actual event, 13 days between when the creator of Call of Duty lost his life and the actual event. But also, check this out. What year was the game? What year did the game come out? We already said the year 2013. So there's another 13. So guys, it's clear that they're really pushing this whole 13 number with this. And it does suggest that there is some sort of occult underlying behind this whole thing that kind of turned this whole thing from a ritual into, actual events. And to those of you who are saying, well, it could be just a coincidence that the creator of the Call of Duty, he passed away 13 days before the event. Well, just think about this, all right? Because December 21st, like we said, the winter solstice, it's when the sun is at its weakest point, and the forces of darkness, they hold maximum power. Ancient cultures all over the world talked about this, from the Vikings to the Romans to the Druids. They marked this date with elaborate rituals. Okay, the Norse, they celebrated, I think it was Yule, with massive feasts and sacrifices. According to these medieval chroniclers, the Vikings held these ceremonies every winter solstice. They would sacrifice animals and sometimes people to appease the gods during the darkest day of the year. And on top of that, there was also secondary cycles, right? So every 9 years, every 9 winter solstices, at the great temple of Uppsala in Sweden, the sacrifices would get, let's just say, especially horrific. 9 of every living creature, including 9 men, were hanged from sacred trees and left to rot as offerings to the god, okay? To the gods, to their small g gods. These human sacrifices and these sacrifices in general they always have been an integral part of getting the ritual to work. You perform the ritual and the sacrifice seals it so that it may come to fruition. And the occultists have known about this for a long time. It's nothing new. And even in Roman times, they had the festival Saturnalia where they would do basically the same thing. And the Druids would do the same thing as well. The Druids considered the winter solstice like a time, basically like how we see modern Halloween, a time when the veil between worlds, the veil between the spiritual realm and the physical realm was the most thin, when communication with these otherworldly entities was not only possible but encouraged. And they did these rituals to basically the same thing that we're talking about: human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, rituals to communicate with the spiritual realm and to allow the people to survive through the winter, because the winter was coming. The crops were all dead, and this was the time where they were asking the gods to come help them survive the winter. So they would kill people, they would do these sacrifices, they would do what they need to do to survive the winter. Now we don't need to survive the winter anymore, but we're still asking the same entities for help, considering other matters. When I say we, I'm not talking about us, you and me. I'm talking about humanity as a general. I'm talking about society. Our culture is doing this, right? There's people, high-ranking people that are doing these things behind closed doors, as a way to sacrifice to the gods to get, more favorable outcomes for what they want to do, their plans, etc. In our society. And it makes a lot of people wonder if there is something actually happening to our reality. Is our timeline shifting, or is it darker? In my opinion, is that this whole thing is a ritual. It's an occult ritual. It's a way of getting the spiritual realm to comply with the physical realm, to, make adjustments to it, so to speak. So let me explain how this actually works, because most people, they kind of misunderstand what predictive programming really is and how it works, what the mechanism of it is. Because when it comes down to it, when you get down to brass tacks.
Brass tacks, okay, my job is to advise.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks here, guys.
What's the offer, you think? I mean,
Brass tacks.
can we just get down to brass tacks here?
You don't have to answer that. I want to get down to...
It's ceremonial magic. It's magic traditions that go back thousands of years. And there's a concept that the occultists, that the black magicians use, they call it speaking things into existence. And the idea is that words and images have power. And when you declare something will happen, and you visualize it, when you make others visualize it, what you're doing is you're pulling that into a future reality. You're pulling that idea into reality by allowing people to visualize it, by allowing people to experience it, just like when they're playing the game. They're seeing it, they're visualizing it, they're doing it, they're performing this ritual, they're pulling it into reality. And the battery, so to speak, that will jumpstart this spell is usually some sort of sacrifice. It's usually some sort of blood sacrifice. And it's always been like that, guys. You can see here that there's nothing new under the sun. It's the same way that they have been doing it forever. They're going to continue to do the same thing. And that's how you can kind of see through the veil, so to speak, because you can look out for these types of things. And when you see it happen, bingo, that's their calling card. They're the ones behind this. And the Bible actually tells us the same thing. The Bible tells us that behind everything, behind all major events, behind all people, it's not the people that are perpetrating these events. It's the spiritual powers, the spiritual wickedness in heavenly places that are real enemies, because we battle not against flesh and blood. So the people are just the medium for the spiritual realm to work through and use them in whatever ways they want to use them. And when the people are open to that and they're actually inviting these spiritual beings, these entities into themselves, using rituals and using black magic, well then it helps them dictate what they need to do in order for future events to pass. Because in my opinion, guys, entertainment media is the largest spell casting apparatus ever created. There's billions of people, billions, think about that. They're all visualizing the same things, the same scenarios. They're all emotionally invested in the same outcomes. And when you watch a movie or play a video game, for instance, you're not just being entertained. You're participating in the ritual. Your attention is the fuel. Your emotional response is the offering. And the creators, they're basically high priests that are conducting the ceremony. That's the way I kind of see things. In Call of Duty Ghosts, in my opinion, it wasn't just a game. It was a 13-year spell. Millions of players around the world, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. I don't know how many people play that game, but a lot of people play that game. It's extremely popular. It's been out for over a decade, and they're all visualizing the same thing. They're visualizing American Special Forces invading Venezuela in the middle of the night and basically capturing the leadership of Venezuela, capturing the president, achieving what many people are calling regime change in the year 2026. Basically, every player that completed that mission was, in some sense, adding to the energy of that working, of that spell. They're giving their own emotional response, their own excitement, their satisfaction, the victory that they felt when they completed the mission. It all feeds into this ritual. And the parallels between the game and what happened in real life, I think they're too precise to ignore. Right? U.S. Special Forces doing a nighttime operation in Caracas in 2026, capturing the Venezuelan leader. I mean, what else is there? You can't make this stuff up. The writers of the video game didn't just get it right broadly with broad strokes. They got the year right. They got the location right. They got the target right. And they got the methodology right. So ask yourself, how does it happen like that? How does this type of thing keep happening time and time again? Because this phenomenon, Well, there's a name in certain circles that, like we talked about, called predictive programming.
Buddy, you know I love you, and I hate to see you like this, but we gotta look at reality here.
It's not just manipulation of personality and mental cognition, behavioral modification, and predictive programming.
And the theory suggests that the governments of the world, different intelligence agencies, or hidden power structures use popular entertainment, use the media to plant ideas in the collective unconscious. Basically preparing the public for events that have already been pre-planned, events that might seem otherwise random or shocking. They program these events so that when the events actually do happen, you're more, likely to just go along with it. There's not going to be as much backlash. And maybe that's the reason why there is no backlash.
We would have gotten all that oil.
What they want to do is they want to make the public accept these events that might otherwise seem like shocking or unacceptable. Now, here's the thing, guys. Whether you believe this is intentional programming or not, the track record of this, of the media, of entertainment predicting major events, is so disturbing. And it's so precise that it really does warrant some sort of attention. People should start to look at this. Because famously, right, The Simpsons predicted Donald Trump. They predicted 9/11. In The Matrix, Neo's passport said 9/11, 2001 on it. I mean, there's so many examples. We've gone over all this stuff before. I'm sure you already know. But predictive programming, events that happened in movies that parallel real life, it's a pattern, right? It's undeniable. And I think that it goes back pretty far too. I mean, if I remember, it was like 1898. There's an author named Morgan Robinson. He published a book called Futility, which told the story about this enormous unsinkable ship called the Titan that strikes an iceberg in April and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And basically everybody died on board. Well, 14 years later, the Titanic met its same exact fate in April of 1912. So did this author predict the sinking of the Titanic in his book? Or was there something darker, more spiritual there that the author was either intentionally or unintentionally tapping into and getting this information from the other side and putting it in his book that would later go on to be the Titanic? I want to be very careful here because I'm really not saying that his death, the death of Vince, was anything other than a tragic accident on a dangerous mountain road. And when you look at the things, you look at how everything adds up together.
You're telling me it's suspicious?
It's suspicious.
Very, very suspicious.
But I guess that was just a coincidence.
Now, whether or not this is my opinion, whether or not I'm right, that's up to you to decide. What do you think? Put it in the comments. Because here's the thing, guys. Throughout history, our entire history of humanity, certain occult belief systems have held that great undertakings require great sacrifices. The idea here, the idea that the occultists use why they conduct these sacrifices, is because they believe that blood has power and that death, it releases energy, and that sacrifice precedes transformation. Now, I want to show you this short clip of an interview I did with a man named Russ Dizdar a few years ago, and he talks about this exact thing. It's not in the context of what we're talking about here, but what he's talking about is human sacrifice in general and what happens on the other side, on the spiritual side, when a sacrifice is committed. Check out this clip.
Well, see, first of all, it's normal when you go to the Old Testament, Moloch and the Baals, they wanted the children. Explained to me by Satanists because it's a higher level of blasphemy to God, against God. It's and for some reason, the demons love bringing that kind of harm. We look at a child and automatically we're going to protect them, save them, guard them, whatever it takes. They look at a child, they'd eat it alive, they destroy it, they'd torture it. Got to remember that's their nature. And so if they could show more of their nature to a defenseless child, they love that. That's why some rituals are called demon revels or satanic revels. The younger the child, and here's exactly what dark undergrounders have said to me in rituals. The younger, the better. And we never kill them right away. We prolong the torture. Why? Because we have to raise the energies, the terror, the fear, and then little by little letting some blood out, because blood is and all that torment. It's like, think in terms of rats and garbage. Smelly old garbage draws the rats. A ritual with all that torture, with all that pain, ultimately prescribed by the demons in the first place, it draws them. And once they begin to open the bloodgate, that's what they attach to in the context ritual. Then when a child or a human is killed, that's when the demons are released to the practitioners. So it's all about their unsatiable hatred of God. Anything they can do to harm humanity, harm innocence as an attack on God in a sense. There's no question in their nature, they don't shed a tear. They don't have any mercy. So they'll harm, and they love that as part of the entrance to come into the side.
So whether you interpret these events through like a spiritual lens or you dismiss them as some sort of statistical noise, that's irrelevant because something objectively is happening to our reality and it demands attention. The examples of predictive programming, they keep multiplying. There's way too many to list. And the thing is, guys, it's too specific to be random, right? It's too specific to be some sort of statistical anomaly. Because Call of Duty Ghosts didn't just predict that some random day in the future that the US would be in conflict with Venezuela at open war. No, it predicted that special forces would raid Caracas in the middle of the night in the year 2026 to capture the Venezuelan leader. That's exactly what happened. It predicted the year, the city, the operation, the type, it predicted all of that stuff very, very specifically. And then 13 days before that happened, on the winter solstice, the man who created the whole franchise suddenly left our reality. And as we've covered in previous episodes, entities throughout history have adapted their disguise while maintaining basically consistent behaviors throughout the years, right? The phenomenon our ancestors would call, demons. I mean, we still have demons today, but like fairies and different things like that. Well, now people call them aliens and interdimensional beings, but they're all the same thing. They disguise themselves. The vessels change, but the patterns remain consistent. Perhaps predictive programming is nothing more than a modern form of prophecy. Prophecy that's inspired by the spiritual realm, by the evil side of the spiritual realm, right? Because this doesn't come from God. And I think it's possible that entertainment as a whole has become sort of the new oracle. The game designers and screenwriters, they're unwittingly like channeling these spiritual beings, these messengers from the other side that dictate to them what the future events will be, and then they actually in turn get that information from the spiritual realm, put it into whatever video game, movie, music piece, TV show, whatever it may be, book, and it becomes part of history.
They're possessed by voodoo spirits.
Just like how we talked about H.P. Lovecraft and how he was plagued with these night terrors his whole life that seemed to be coming from an actual place. I make the case that H.P. Lovecraft and Aleister Crowley are getting their information from the same place. Crowley would access the spiritual realm through rituals, through black magic, through evil acts, and he would get the same type of knowledge that H.P. Lovecraft was getting through his dreams. And it's not me saying that, by the way. One of Aleister Crowley's main apprentices named Kenneth Grant wrote a book, and he talks about this. And this is a known phenomenon, by the way. A lot of writers will talk about, I think they call it the muse, where something will take them over and basically give them the book that they're writing. Something will enter them and write, if it's an author, they're going to write the book for them. If it's like an actor or something, they're going to blank out and something else will take them over while they are performing that work. And then they call it the muse. Or perhaps there's something darker at work. Perhaps certain evil forces, they understand how to use mass media to prepare the collective unconscious for events that they know are coming, events that they intend to bring about. So bottom line here, guys, keep your eyes open, right? Test everything. Don't believe what you hear on the news. And remember that the most important things are often hidden in plain sight. They're just waiting for those with discernment to see them, to unlock the mysteries. All you have to do is keep your eyes open. So, what do you guys think about this? Do you think there is a connection here? Do you see the connection between Call of Duty, ghosts what happened in the game and what happened in real life, or am I just, grasping at straws here? Please put in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions on this, and I want to thank you all for watching this video. We'll see you next time, and God bless you all.